Welcome to Matcha Minutes, where our guest today is Mayor Tony McNeill, who's running for County Commissioner in the 4th District.
Correct.
Welcome to the show. Thank you for being on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Very close personal friend. Super excited to have you on here and talk about your platform.
Sure.
For those people who don't know Tony McNeill, what can you tell us?
Tony McNeill. So grew up in California till I was 16, moved in with the McNeills, left my original biological family, and moved in with McNeills, who moved out to the Midwest.
Well, that's an interesting story.
Yeah.
So you explain.
Yeah. So I was good friends with the McNeills growing up. My mother, who married 7 different dudes, 7 different gentlemen, I never had a father figure.
Okay.
I guess so. I kind of weighed on Ed McNeill, who's the guy I consider my father.
Wow.
And so when they decided to move back to the Midwest, he's from Ottawa, Iowa. They asked me if I wanted to move with them. I mean, they had 7 kids. I was like one of their kids, you know. My mom signed the papers and let him take me out, to the Midwest. And that's how I got in the Midwest.
And that's how you became a McNeill.
That's how I became a McNeill. When I was 17, they legally adopted me with the last name.
That's an incredible story.
Yeah.
So you moved to the Midwest, and at some point you joined the Marine Corps.
I did. My father, Ed, was big on all of you guys are going to college. I'm actually the first graduate of college. Took his advice. And my junior year, I joined what they call PLC, or platoon leader class. Went in the Marine Corps. Graduated from college in '83. Was, dating my current spouse since I was 17.
Wow.
Got married in '83.
Married your high school sweetheart.
I did. And drug her away from her family, which had 9 kids. Mostly older brothers who threatened to, kill me if I didn't take care of her. But we moved from South Dakota all the way to Quantico, and, that's how I started my career in the Marine Corps.
Did you go to college, ROTC, or OCS?
I did Army ROTC and never signed up with them.
Okay.
I had a Marine Corps recruiter come to the school. My roommate in college was, his dad was a career Air Force, I think Master Chief. And he was going to the Marine Corps, Terry Sears. Small fact there. His wife was the Lieutenant Governor of Virginia.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. So he was the best man in our wedding. Good friend of mine. He was going in the Marine Corps. He asked me, like, hey, you want to go in? Like, just for the summer thing, we get paid X. And I was like, yeah, I got nothing to do this summer. So I just went. And when I came back, I was like, I'm not sure I'm going in. I just don't know. And then the OSO came to our apartment, swore us in. I decided that day that I would go in, which didn't really make him happy because he had to do the hand jam paperwork by, we both went in together, went to Quantico, and he got out in 4 years, and I stayed in until I retired out of the Marine Corps.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I was in the Marine Corps delayed entry pool.
Okay.
I was going to be a Marine. My brother was a Marine.
Okay.
And then I got a National Guard scholarship to KU, and the Marine Corps let me out, and I went into the National Guard.
Oh, nice.
But my original job was to be a Marine Corps radio telephone operator. So
yeah.
I was getting ready to catch bullets downrange at some point.
Yeah, radio operators. They're always in the danger.
That's right.
Yeah.
So you get out of the Marine Corps. How do you end up in Leavenworth?
Well, I was, after Desert Storm, I was battery commander there. When we went to school in Quantico again, I went to command. I mean, it was a communications course because I was aviation command and control.
Okay.
So I sent you to comm school there, which was 9 months. And then towards the end of the year, they come in and say, first off, they said, who had been in combat and commanded? So I raised my hand. They said, okay, all you guys go in that room. And they basically said, hey, you're not going back to the Fleet Marine Force. You're going external. here's a list of stuff you want to do. And they went by merit, so just by rank, data rank, and said, McNeill, you're first, pick one of these 7 things. So I was like, well, I'll pick Colorado Springs, because I didn't know anything about, I didn't know anything about Colorado Springs. So I went to Colorado Springs to U.S. Space Command.
Okay.
I was supposed to be working in the mountain and doing all kinds of, tracking space junk and things like that on a team. But I guess the Navy captain that was in charge of that decided he was going to put a couple of ensigns there before we even got there. So 2 Marine captains showed up and said, hey, yeah, you're not going in there. You're going on the staff. So I did this staff work for, I don't know, 2 months. And then the Marine Corps came out when we were doing cuts after Desert Storm. I don't know if you remember that, but they started cutting everybody. They asked what you were doing. Was it, what is the payback to the Marine Corps? Meaning, like, how does that apply to your job in the Marine Corps? And, we got pulled in by the senior colonel that was at Spacecom and said, hey, everybody's important here. Don't make any waves. And I made waves, right? So when the colonel asked me, I said, hey, I'm like reviewing, NSA documents as a captain, which I didn't think I should be doing, and said, I will PCS myself out of here because there's no pay back to the Marine Corps in this job, which really angered the colonel that was there. But so they said, hey, come talk to me later. So I did, and they sent me down to Army Space Command. I worked for Army Space Command for 3 years. And after that, they sent me to CGSC. Well, my wife's from South Dakota. This is about as close as you can get for any Marine, right? So that's, once we left here, we were like, man, we really like Kansas. And we really like that location. If I can ever get back here, I'm going to try it. So I did a whole bunch of other things. Picked up lieutenant colonel. They asked, where I wanted to go. I said, hey, I'd like to go to Fort Leavenworth. They said, well, that's an aviator job. I said, no, actually in the book, it's an aviator or aviation command and control guy. And I'm one of those. So he said, I'll pencil you in. If an aviator doesn't want it, then you can go. So that's how I ended up here.
Wow.
Got selected for battalion command like a year after I was here, but my kids were in school. My wife was like, hey, you could go do that. We'll stay here. I was like, nah, I'll just retire. Wow. I had enough time in. So that's how we ended up here. Moved out in town in Lansing. Loved Lansing. So, yeah, I mean.
When you were here, did you live in Lansing or did you live elsewhere in the county? Or did you live on the fort?
For CGSC, I lived on the fort. Everybody pretty much does, most of the students. When I went there and got a tour, my last tour was at CGSC, and we lived on fort for a year. But we were like upstairs in the infantry barracks, had a dog, 3 kids, wife's carrying groceries up, 45 stairs, and was like, if we're staying here, we just need to go buy a house. So they were just building the Maples homes there. Gary Oss and Doman were building a little neighborhood there, and we picked out one that they were just building.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's fun.
At what point did you decide you wanted to get into politics?
I told a story at like some of the forums. I was trying to build a fence. We had a dog, like I said. We had her on like one of those little, leash things that you can run in the yard on.
Yep.
A run.
A dog run?
A dog run. Cable. And I was like, my wife's like, let's just build a fence. So me and my neighbor, Tom Mara, we were like, hey, we'll go together and build this fence. There was an easement down the back, which I guess, by city ordinance, you have to get a waiver to actually build a fence. So I went there. I had the public works guy come out to my place. Actually, Billy Blackwell and Harlan Russell were on the council and came out when this was going to go on the agenda, and they were both like, yeah, this shouldn't stop you from building a fence, which I appreciated. And the public works guy said, hey, I'll come up there. He was the assistant public works guy. John Jacobson now as the current planning guy at the
county.
Yeah. So something happened. John couldn't make it. And then his boss showed up and said, hey, we got some people who want to build a fence. We don't normally let them build it over over an easement, but he wants to talk to you guys. So I was like, wow, that's not a very good introduction. I mean, after all these people came out to my house and said, hey, this looks good and you're good to go. So that kind of irritated me.
Sure.
I gave my little spiel, said, this is why I want to build a fence. You're taking up like 2/3 of my yard with this wash to begin with. If I put a fence outside of that easement, I'd have, 1/16 of an acre of a yard, which doesn't make sense. So they voted on it. It was a 5-3 vote, but one of my representatives from the ward voted no, and that guy never even came out to my house, which really angered me. And so I went up to him after that and said, why would you vote no? Like, you didn't even come out to my house. He's like, I always vote no on these issues. I said, okay, well, I'm running against you in the next election. And he just kind of smirked at me, because I was really angry. But that wasn't for a year. So I got on the Board of Zoning Appeals for a year, heard a couple of those cases. So learned a little bit about zoning, and then ran against him and beat him in the election. And then, like I said, I'm city councilman for 11 years for Ward 4.
So what point did you decide to run for mayor?
That would have been when Mike Smith ran for county commissioner. I was going to run against him anyway. So about the same time I said I'm running, he ran for that office. So I was really unopposed that first year. I mean, it would have been him and I think. So I got that in 2020, elected for mayor, and then I ran again and ran unopposed. And won in 24.
What have you learned from being a local government official that you think is really relevant to your county commission race?
Let's see. So I've learned a lot about comprehensive planning, strategic, a strategic view. I mean, we learned that in the military too. You got to have a strategy. So I mean, the comprehensive plan we had originally, I think we voted no on that they had done. And, our planning commission head chief, and I think it was Pittman's dad, was like, hey, you need to pass this. It's this law. I didn't like it. And he said, hey, if there's things we don't like in it, you can update this thing yearly or annually, take a relook. But we have to get this thing through. So that was the first time I was kind of like, okay, this comprehensive plan is tied to Kansas law, and then started digging into it. And future land use to me is probably the biggest item in there. There's a lot of other items in the comprehensive plan, but for a governing body, I think future land use is the biggest one. Knowing where your growth area is, laying out where you think things are going to go. You can always change those later. But when you try to change them later and you have a lot of opposition, it's really hard to change them. So you really have to think forward. Don't just say, hey, this kind of industrial, we'll put, this over here, some housing over here. It has to be really thought through. And I think that's what the county's running into now. I mean, they do have some I-3, but it's all down by the river.
I-3 is considered what for those?
Industrial, heavy industrial.
Okay. So this is where we're talking about data centers.
Right. So a data center, like I said the other night, a car manufacturing plant, I mean, it could be anything that basically takes a large load.
Sure.
And that's what they call them. Large load data center or some kind of heavy manufacturing. I would say the Panasonic is a large, heavy manufacturing area.
Hill's Pet Nutrition, that would be I-3?
I think it's either I-2 or I-3.
Okay.
So it depends on how you, I'll have to look at the business centers for sure to see what they're allowing in there. So commercial, it might be up to I-2, I-1. which is light industrial. So they all have their own little categories, but you have to know those and know what you want to bring in. You can always change an I-1 to an I-2, which is, again, that would have to be in your plan. Like if I say this is an industrial area and I say it's I-2, which only goes up to a certain level, but an I-3 wants to come in, well, you can change that, right? And most folks would be okay with that. They're like, oh, it was industrial. So we're good with you changing just, the little difference between I-2 and I-3. But I mean, when you try to change like, hey, we want, housing here, 2-acre housing. And then you say, no, we're putting I-3 in there. That's what upsets residents, right? And citizens. And I understand that.
Is that because they're unaware of what the comprehensive plan is? Well, do people not know? So I think, and I could be wrong off this, I think the big opposition to the data center, and people will say it's a number of things, a litany of things. I would say the big thing is we just don't want it in our backyard, right? It blocks the view. People move to the county because they want to live in the country. And now you've got this big building that's kind of blocking it. But how many people really are well versed on when they buy a home, what the future of that land area is? Maybe they just don't know that it's zoned for I-3.
Right. And a lot of people don't. Right. I mean, in that housing area off of McIntyre is a good example of that. Mm-hmm. You had folks who bought 5-acre lots from the same person who was going to sell it to a developer to put, smaller lots in there. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, if you don't know, but a lot of these people in the county wouldn't even consider that. So if you're doing a comprehensive plan and you bring in the citizens from the county and have representatives from all over the county, they get input in that, right? I mean, so they get to help determine some of that land use. So if they, in your comprehensive plan, you had people provide input and you said, yeah, you're right. It's probably rural residential out there or it's totally ag, mm-hmm. right? And then later on, you come out and say, hey, we're changing this land use to industrial 3. That's what gets residents fired up. I mean, and I understand that. If I'm building a business center out there in Tongi, now that piece of land actually is either touches or is close to the northeastern side. I can't remember. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, if you were forward thinking and said this business center is going to be bigger than this, you could have shown a growth area past that business center and said, hey, this is all commercial and industrial past this area, right? Because for me, you want to keep it close to cities. I mean, as much as you can. I mean, we want to preserve the rural, nature of Leavenworth County. And the way you do that is build around cities and their growth areas. You're still going to have people who don't want that, right? Sure. But you don't have to pay for extra infrastructure to go out there, roads, upkeep, all that. So, I mean, that's the importance of a comprehensive plan. I mean, you have to think far out and you have to be able to get at least consensus or at least feedback from the community that is where we think it should go. And if you get that, you're going to get a lot less pushback. And, for me, I think that's pretty important. No matter where you are, Tongi, Lansing, wherever.
You had said during your forum that you were not opposed to data centers, but you feel like maybe the Hyperloop proposed for Tonganoxie may not be right for the community. Can you expand on that?
I mean, I'm not in Tonganoxie. They're a pretty small town. They have a lot of growth along 2440. But if you look at their town, it's still a small mm-hmm. community. So I think a lot of the growth there is putting pressure on the small community. Mm-hmm. And, they're a rural community. So they have a lot of rural land out there and there are a lot of farmers. So I kind of feel for them a little bit when you're talking about plopping that there. At the same time, they have the opportunity to annex that piece of property into the city.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, really from the county's perspective, that would have been my first kind of, hey, are you guys interested in annexing this and making it part of your business district? And if the city says, yeah, we're good with that, well, those are the representatives from Tonganoxie, right? So you get buy-in right off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
If they annexed them. And then, then Tongi gets to make the decision on making that I-3, right? If they would have done the annexation.
If the county wanted to stop this, ultimately, they could just rezone it as ag or something, couldn't they?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, right now, it's not I-3.
Oh, it's not?
No, they haven't voted on the land use yet. They did the moratorium on there to take a look at it. I think it's ag, and that owner wants to sell it to the data center folks or the developers, Cloverleaf or whoever. But before Cloverleaf's going to buy that, they have to be assured that that land use is going to be I-3. And I mentioned that in the forum.
You did.
I mean, the job at the county is, hey, that, we can make the determination that it's I-3 now. But I mean, at the same time, I would be working with the city of Tongi to say, hey, would you consider annexing this in and making it I-3? And if they say totally not, we're not, that's you, county. Well, now county's responsible for all the infrastructure. So whatever deals you have to make with the developer on infrastructure, and they may say, hey, we'll pave roads all the way to, I-70 and over to 2440, whatever you want us to pave, which is great. However, the county then now has to maintain all that infrastructure that went in. Right?
But
right?
There's a proposed $14.5 million property tax on that property, assuming the county doesn't give that away if it goes in. This is all presumptuous right now.
Right.
The thing I hear when I was knocking and walking doors, and I'm sure you hear it as well, is we're tired of being taxed.
Oh, yeah.
And the county has gotten this reputation as they're closed for business. And some of the commissioners there will show you a sheet of paper with lines and lines and lines of businesses, but they're small businesses. Small businesses don't pay as much tax as larger businesses. How do you resolve that issue of, I want lower property tax, but I don't want this built here, even though it's going to bring in a ton of tax money. I don't want this here, sand pits. I don't want nuclear.
Right.
How do you solve people's property tax problem if we don't want to bring anything large into the community?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I mean, one of the ways you do it is to go after why we're constricted to property taxes, right? I mean, in the city, we have sales tax, property tax, we have guest use taxes on the hotels. I mean, we have a lot of revenue streams that we can actually help lower property taxes with. County doesn't have that many options. I mean, honestly. So they have to lobby the state. I mean, I think they had a couple bills this year that got vetoed that would help reduce your property taxes, or at least stop the valuations from going, skyrocketing. And I think a couple of the speakers yesterday talked about some bills that they're working on to cap, right? I think it's 11.5 is what they can appraise, is the standard appraisal for your house.
Which can be a lot. If you bought your house very low and it appraises for 11.5%, that's a lot of money that you can be out of. Can't the county cap it itself? I mean, Baser's trying to cap itself. Couldn't the county just say, you know what, we're going to cap it at 3% and we're going to follow Baser's example and we're not going to collect more than 3%?
Yeah, so cities have home rule authority, which they can do that. Everything the county does has to be approved by the state legislature.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the problem. Like if I want to, let's just say instead of the 1 cent sales tax, which, I mean, I'm kind of ignorant on when I voted for yes on that. I thought, hey, we'll give 1 cent to the county. They could take care of all the county roads. Well, that 1 cent sales tax is a general sales tax, which then gets split between Leavenworth, Lansing, Tonganoxie, everybody, all the big cities in the county and the county. The county's actually making less than Leavenworth, city of, on that sales tax that they want to use for infrastructure. Why? I mean, the city of Leavenworth's already getting sales tax. So is Lansing. So is Tonganoxie. So, I mean, every time you try to get another revenue stream in, it has to go through the state. And this last one I think they tried was to do the emergency medical or the emergency management system.
Yeah.
The radios and stuff.
The radios for the sheriff's
911. The sheriff went up there, and spoke. That got killed. Not because it wasn't a good idea, right? It got killed because there was a fight over all the other counties that were trying to do stuff. And if you weren't doing it for this county, I'm not voting for this county, and ended up dying.
It was killed in committee.
It's like, so having to go, no home rule authority at the county level, you're dependent on the state, which puts them in a tough position. I mean, you got a lot of people out there screaming, hey, we have a spending problem. Really, they don't have a lot of options. So if I'm at the county level and I'm barely making it with whatever my mill levy is, and you want me to cap half of that, well, then I'm going down here. So what do you want? Do you want poorer infrastructure? Do you want less safety? There's just so much that they can do with the dollars that they have.
Less property tax and less services, and people don't really understand that.
Oh, right. I mean, for us, you can offset some of the property tax with sales tax and still provide the services.
But even Lansing's limited with the amount of sales tax they're collecting.
Oh, right. Yeah. I mean we have to vote on that, and yeah.
But you just don't have that many businesses. I mean, and you're growing, and hopefully that changes over time.
Yeah.
But right now you have a small pool, but it's not like Leavenworth that has a larger pool of businesses to pull from.
Yeah. And I mean, as you know, probably we have a pretty big shopping center coming in, 75,000 square feet, which should produce somewhere in at least the estimates are 600,000 a year.
Wow.
In sales tax. So at least half of that we could use to, lower our property taxes for sure. I mean, that's been my guidance already. And when this comes in, we're going to start lowering property taxes, at least with half of that.
Do you think that once you get elected, that the people who follow you will follow through with that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think the governing body is pretty solid down in Lansing. They all are for that. And I think pretty much we've all been working towards lowering property taxes. I think maybe the average citizen doesn't realize it because we took on the police department.
The fire department.
The fire department. When FD1, we dissolved that.
So that you're bringing back, I saw you had a post on your Facebook page for your campaign that you guys were revenue neutral and actually lowered property tax. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So and I think we talked about this in the forum, but we went revenue neutral for 2 years, and we pushed hard on the city administrator and our finance director to make that happen, and they did. The next year, their recommendation was flat, which means you're not raising or lowering, but because your home evaluations went up higher, you're still making revenue. You're not revenue neutral, you're getting more revenue, even though your mill levy is flat. And a lot of politicians like to say, hey, we went flat. Well,
it's not exactly
don't understand
true.
that.
That's right.
I just the mill levy didn't change, but my valuation changed, which means you're taxing me more.
You're still being taxed more.
Right. Yeah. So I think the third year we had gone revenue neutral with CPI. So the inflation rate is all we upped.
Which is about 3%.
Right, from the previous year. And that's been my guidance as the mayor is, look, revenue neutral doesn't work because we're just eating up our reserve. And then, you have to maintain a certain reserve for a lot of reasons. One is bond issues and bond ratings and what a good deal you get from the bond issuers. So the guidance has been use the CPI or lower if we can. And this year we use CPI, but actually below the CPI. So I think the state knows that bill that they passed doesn't really work for most cities. In fact, they introduced a bill that included a CPI, like revenue neutral CPI. What revenue neutral did do is make you have an open hearing, and
Sure.
And that's important.
There's a lot of value.
So a lot of citizens get to come in and ask you questions.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one of the questions we had was when we took over the fire department. We inherited the 9 mills in the city. So we were down to 32, went back up to 41, and people were like, okay, I just got my thing. You just went up 9 mills. And I kind of explained, like, okay, we didn't raise the mill levy. That's the same mill levy you were paying, only to Fire District 1 just got moved to us. So we didn't raise your taxes. You're not, those shouldn't change at all. But having that open hearing, you know, it enables you to communicate to the citizens what's going on, and that's important.
One of the things you said during the forum is you had attended a summit on data centers that I don't think any of your other candidates had attended. Can you talk a little bit about something or some of the things you learned at that summit?
Yeah.
And this is in relation to
this was the Kansas Municipal Utilities Summit on data centers. It was for local officials, kind of give them information on these large load, not just data centers, but any large load industrial folks trying to come in.
Yep.
And then, you know, what kind of policies you need to set, what kind of regulations on the utilities, especially if counties own a utility or cities own a utility. So they gave us a lot of information. Evergy was there. Their chief operating officer was there, gave a pretty good speech on what they're doing on data centers. And they're levying a lot on data centers. If you are going to pull X amount of power and our peak is this, and you need this, you're going to provide the delta. So if a transfer station or transformer stations, I know one is like, it costs, the guy, he used the example of one that they made him put in was like $12 million. And then because they run 24/7, they actually help the utilities, which I didn't really understand. But I mean, citizens across the county would use, their peak is around 6 p.m. After that, it starts going off, and then, you know, all that other time between 6 and 5, almost no, you know, the peak
very little
is
use
down here, right? So the data centers actually use up all of that time that we're not using, which then gives revenue to the utilities, which can help lower our rates.
And that revenue is taxed. I mean, they're paying sales tax on that revenue.
Right. And they're also being tariffed. The data centers are being tariffed 15 to 20%.
But what about this argument that data centers cause people to pay more in energy because the data center needs more energy? Is that not an accurate statement?
It's not an accurate statement, at least in the state of Kansas. And the area in Missouri that they cover, Evergy covers kind of Kansas and Missouri area. They pulled in a whole bunch of different electrical companies. But their policy is their tariff, they're putting a tariff of 15 to 20% on those folks to make sure they're not raising rates of the people that live in those areas. So my understanding is there's not going to be a rate increase. Now, there's probably other states who have different deals with the data centers, or maybe put a data center and didn't realize how much they're going to pull and what that would do to the other rates. But I think Kansas, at least Evergy has learned from these other companies out there, other states. They've learned lessons from them, and I think they're employing them.
You had talked a little bit about water use, and I know the citizens are concerned about water use and a data center perhaps draining the water table. Is that a realistic expectation?
Well, I mean, we had the expert from, I think it was KDHE, whoever was running the water portion of that conference. He talked a lot about water and water rights and how much usage. So, I mean, their policy is they don't want anything other than a closed loop or beyond. Like, so the next technology is to cool the chips with some kind of gel or something.
That's right.
I'm not familiar with that technology, but I mean, it sounds good. So the closed loop, I mean, once you fill it up, it's kind of like your radiator. I mean, it's how it was explained to me.
Mm-hmm.
They put glycol in there, for a coolant, and they just use that amount.
But they don't allow any building to be placed in a place where it can consume more water than is available. It was my understanding.
Right. And like I said, if it's a closed loop system, then that's not
nothing ever comes out.
Yeah. I mean, they want to go closer to the rivers. I mean, because that makes sense, because you're pulling a lot, wherever your water rights are off the river, they're going to get the gallons they need, but they won't, I don't think Kansas is going to let anything but a closed loop come in. We just can't. I mean, the one previous to that is like an evaporated, and that just eats tons of water up. I just think Kansas said, yeah, we're not going to allow that to come in.
As I was researching for our podcast, I noticed that there were some comments on some of your Facebook posts, and somebody suggested that you're perhaps a liberal running as a Republican.
Yeah.
What would you say to that?
I think that's funny. I mean, I was the first one to put my name in the hat as a Republican. I think we paid too much attention to that, honestly. At the city level, and to me, even at the county level, we're not worried about Republican and Democrat issues. Now, I understand why people want to know if you're more conservative or liberal, especially at the county, because it's about the budget, right? It's about providing services the best services for the least amount of money we can. So keep you as safe as possible, but don't tax the heck out of you, right? So that's a conservative approach, right? So I think it's funny that people will start saying things about candidates, but I mean, that's fine. I've been a Republican, like I said in my response to that post, for 48 years. I've been voting Republican my whole life, but I never had to run as a Republican in the 16, 17 years I've been in local government politics. I mean, I don't consider it really politics. I consider it like a concerned citizen who wants to make their community better. And that's what it's about, even at the county, is making the county better. It has nothing to do with Republican, Democrat, priorities to me. But
what I found interesting is I think that post captures what everyone is tired with when it comes to politics. Name calling, mudslinging, instead of just running and talking about the issues and how their candidate supports the issues.
Right.
We resort to calling people names and trying to paint them as something that they're not. And I think that destroys friendships. I think that destroys relationships. And I think it's unfair, because if we're not running for who we are and what we stand for, and we're running for the letter behind our name,
right,
what are we running for then?
Yeah, I mean, and I've talked to folks who've run at the state level, because I'm friends with a lot of them. The PACs put out stuff, sometimes unknowingly by the candidate, who will put something out negative about, who they're running against. And, I've had issues with those things, even though they might be a Democrat or a Republican. It doesn't really matter. I mean, the mudslinging or the card that has the devil horns coming out, money flying everywhere, saying that they're just burning up your taxpayer dollars. But that's what they do. I mean, that's what the PACs do. I don't think the candidates necessarily feel that way, but I think that's kind of how we've gotten with the two-party system, and I think it's unfortunate. I mean, in fact, the person who made that post, I went to his house and said, "Hey, what is this? You know, I know this person. You know this person. She's a good person. Why would you put this out?" And that's when I found out, like, hey, like, I don't put that out. I don't put that out against my opponent. That's done by the party or the PAC. And that's just a machine, right? I mean, that's why I don't take any endorsements or funds. I've been offered money from developers and, business owners. I don't want to take anybody's donations to run my campaign.
So you're self-funding your own campaign?
Yeah, I've taken no money from anybody, and I don't plan to. I mean, I'm not going to be beholden to anybody either when I get into office. I think that's important. I mean, I don't want to owe a developer something, for example, who comes in and wants to ask for something. And I think that's part of it. I don't want to do that.
That's amazing. What is one of the things you're most proud of from your time in Lansing as mayor?
Let's see. I mean, probably the Aquatic Center, which is, I mean, people will go, what? It's between economic development and the Aquatic Center. The Aquatic Center has been a thorn in the side of the city for a long time. I said I moved to the Midwest. We had 800 people in our town, and we had a pool. Every summer, everybody went to the pool.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like, how is it that Lansing has 11,500 folks, not counting the prisoners, who don't have a pool? It didn't make sense. And I mean, a lot of citizens came in and were asking about that. So, I mean, amenities for the community is important. But then again, when I was on the council, I was like, we're not raising property taxes to put a pool in. I mean, we're already, being killed by property taxes. And, I'm a taxpayer too that lives in the city. So I know the pain. So I went to our city administrator and said, how else can we do this? Like, without doing property taxes, what can we do? And he said, well, you could put it on the ballot and have a special vote to say, can we do a 1/4 cent sales tax and bond the thing and just pay it over 20 years with sales tax? Or if we started getting more sales tax, we pay it off earlier. So we did all the pros and cons of that and put it to the citizens, and they voted it in. It was close.
I heard it was
very close. But I mean, it's been packed. I mean, and they enjoy it. So I think it was the right thing to do. We didn't do it on the back of property taxes. I guess the other thing is trying to get retail and commercial going in the town. And while being on the council and as mayor, I mean, as mayor, probably play more of a role in meeting with developers, which I do a lot, and trying to get folks to come to the city of Lansing. We have kind of a weird dynamic in Lansing, small population with a median income that's very high. But a lot of these retailers won't come if you don't have X number of rooftops. So that's been a priority of ours as well, is housing and how can we increase the housing in Lansing. I think Monroe Manor was a good deal for Lansing and the county. I mean, it's a short RHID, and it's an infill project surrounded by neighborhoods already. It's not out in the middle of the county where we're trying to put 400 homes out there. So I think that'll help the county as well, having 190 homes on the books here in about 6 years.
That's the first time you guys have had a major, not even a major, but a large development. I mean, as I looked over the statistics, it's been something like 7 homes in the last 7 years, roughly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been very low, per se.
Less than 10 in 10 years. So it's been tough.
So when people say that you guys shouldn't offer incentives, that the free market should make that decision, obviously we need something to draw people into Lansing to build, because if I could build a home in Lansing, or I can build a home in Shawnee or Olathe,
right?
Why would I build in Lansing? I can sell it for more in Shawnee or Olathe because the median income is higher.
Right. And we've always given incentives. RHID was just a new one that the state provided. You know, every developer that's worked here, we've worked with them. Okay, you know, whether it's a trade-off of, hey, give us a little piece of parkland and we'll waive all these fees, or put a trail in and you don't have to pay this fee. So we've always had some kind of incentives. So I think it's funny to say we're giving stuff away with RHID to these developers where we didn't do it to local ones. We've always given local developers incentives. So I just think I don't think every citizen kind of knows what the trade-offs are in that area. But
4 years from now, once you've been a county commissioner for 4 years, what do you think voters would look at you and say, you know, we chose right because he accomplished what?
Well, hopefully he accomplished helping to expand the tax base, which, I mean, that's where they're struggling. And I don't think personally that they're looking far enough into the future, right? So, I mean, if I give a 10-year abatement on property taxes to new homes, and typically in an area that's by a city, you're going to make out in the long run. And that's why I don't think they're thinking far enough ahead. Now, I do agree with their policy. Hey, if it's more than 16 years, it's probably not worth the incentive. But you can make better deals in and around the cities than that, like we did with infill. So you just have to work with the developers, find the property that where it makes sense, and think far enough out for housing. Once you bring more housing in, you're going to get more economic development in, because retailers and commercial come to populations. They just don't go out in the middle of nowhere, right? I mean,
sure.
So, you know, growing the population, and I'd like to say in and around the city's growth areas, not all over the county, which I don't personally agree with. You know, plopping a subdivision out in the middle of the county doesn't make sense to me.
Sure.
Because, you know, first thing they're going to ask for is a paved road.
Yeah.
Right. Even though they want to live in the country, you know. So, yeah, I mean, I think probably building the tax base is the most important, because the larger we build that tax base, the lower we can, you know, put the property taxes will go lower as we build up the cities. And, you know, I do think the nature of the county is, you know, rolling farm hills, and I love this county for that. So
Sure.
You don't want to change the total nature of this county by, you know, putting up a whole bunch of stuff out in the ag areas.
Do you believe that the county commission has a responsibility of helping the cities to facilitate a certain amount of growth?
Yes, definitely. And they have. I mean, the county, I mean, they've helped through LCDC and the Port Authority, these business centers.
But they're not funding LCDC.
Yeah, and I don't agree with that.
Okay.
I mean, I don't agree with them. Okay, so LCDC hasn't been good about bringing retail in, right? They're looking at bigger things, so commercial and industrial. That was always kind of my complaint as a councilman.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what is the return on investment? You keep asking us for $35,000 a year. What are you giving back to Lansing with that? Like, I don't see anything. You know, so let's say, well, hey, we brought this company over here in Leavenworth, and those people actually, you know, shop in Lansing. I'm like, okay, no, you're going to have to do better than that.
Yeah.
You know, you gotta show the return on investment. And I think the business centers and filling those is important. I think the county hired an economic development person.
They hired Tom Cole. He's paid six-figure salary. Will work there for a year.
Right.
Produced absolutely nothing.
Right. So,
or very little. I don't know the guy. So
yeah, I don't either. But that $180,000, if you move that to the Port Authority and LCDC, you could fund a lot of their operations, almost all of them. You know, I mean, so just then stopping that and then not doing anything else and then defunding them doesn't make sense to me. Who is going to do that work for the county?
I don't disagree at all. Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's what they're there for. And I think they have it right. I mean, they're trying to bring in commercial and industrial. They just have to bring it into the areas they've already designated. And I think they're filling them up, but it takes time. And I think people don't understand how long it takes development. That 75,000 square foot shopping center that we've been working on off West Mary, 4 years now.
Yeah.
And it's still going.
A lot of
not dead.
A lot of economic development is based on relationships.
Right.
And you can't just hire somebody coming in on day one to start bringing stuff in.
Right.
And I think people don't understand that. And I've been a big proponent of LCDC for a long time because there is nobody else doing that. And they're looking at those big ticket items. And I think, you know, when one of our communities does well, it lifts all of us to a certain extent.
Oh, right.
But there's a lot of infighting, and I'm sure you've seen this, between the cities, between the county and the cities, between the state and the cities and the county.
Yeah, so the county, you know, put like, what, $5 million down in Tonganoxie for that business center, another $5 million in Leavenworth, and we're like,
what about Lansing?
We got a business center. I mean, you can probably buy that property and, you know, build that up. But at the same time, you know, we did get a chunk of money from them to help with the sewer design that we moved out to McIntyre, which has sparked a lot of growth and development in that area. At least people who want to develop now, right? Because you have some infrastructure out there. So I think that corridor is going to be where Lansing expands the most as far as industrial and commercial. Along this K7 corridor, which is what that corridor is actually, you know, the state saying that corridor is for that reason. Yeah.
So we're going to shift gears here and go into our second segment, which is a little more relaxed. I could go on. We didn't even get through all of these questions.
Right.
Because it's just, you know, it's a really easy conversation. You've got a lot of great answers. But we want to get to know Mayor McNeill, County Commissioner candidate McNeill a little bit more. So we're going to ask you a few of these questions, and these weren't sent to you in advance. So there's you don't know what these are, but what is the best thing about Lansing?
Oh, the best thing about Lansing. I would say just the community. I mean, I go to all the events. I'm the mayor, so I get to go all these events. And I mean, I just like having the community events. I enjoy that. I enjoy talking to people. They all seem to be enjoying themselves. I get a lot of comments from folks on the events we hold in the city. And I like it. I like that it's a small town. I mean, we're right next to Leavenworth, which is a fairly big town, but it still feels like we have our own identity as a small community. I think building the town center, one of the things I asked our CED or director to plan some kind of community gathering place there on, I guess it would be the west side, southwest side, down by KCC, where they bought some property, but some kind of band shell or something. I know that 10 and 2, you know, they have the concerts. It would be great if we could have them sponsor concerts kind of in a band shell against the mountain there where people can go shopping and, you know, listen to a concert. So, I mean, I do like the small town feel of Lansing and a close-knit community we are.
I like the way you said that I get to go, I don't have to go. I think that was very well said. Best place to eat in Leavenworth County?
In Leavenworth County?
Yes. Wow. As an up-and-coming county commissioner or county commissioner candidate,
That's tough.
Where is the best place to eat in Leavenworth County?
What am I eating?
I don't know.
Oh.
You have one option.
Yeah.
What is it?
Really?
One go-to.
Okay, I'm going to the Suburban.
Okay.
I love the Suburban. I like their steaks. I like the chef there. I like the business owner. Good man.
Last book you read?
Oh, that's a good one. And it was a reread of Thucydides' The Peloponnesian War, which is one of my favorite books.
Okay.
You read that
That's
one?
Interesting.
If you haven't read it, it's awesome.
I was not expecting that answer. That was good. Okay. One county issue that does not get enough attention.
One county issue does not get enough attention. That's a good one.
All right, let that percolate for a minute.
Yeah.
Most misunderstood thing about local government.
Wow. You got to pick one? Yeah. I think probably the most misunderstood thing is like executive sessions. I think people think you're going into a closet and like making stuff up and, making decisions behind the curtain and not being transparent when it's just part of the law. Like if you're talking about personnel issues and when you do an executive session, it might be about economic development, stuff that you don't want to get out to the public before something, that might kill a deal or, so I think that's misunderstood. I think a lot of people think these executive sessions they're in there just, conspiring or not being transparent. And it's just the opposite. I mean, we come out and say we made no binding decisions. That's one of the requirements, is you don't make decisions in there. You're not voting on stuff. You're just talking either about personnel issues or some kind of land acquisition or something that you don't want the open public to know because then it's a conflict of interest. Yeah.
Coffee, tea, or matcha?
Is it matcha tea?
It's a specialty.
So it's coffee or tea?
Blend of tea.
Even though I love the name of your company, I'm going with coffee.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Small little plug there. Morning person or night owl?
I'm a morning person.
Yeah.
The wife's a night owl, so
okay.
We're just opposites.
What's the best advice you have ever received?
The best advice I ever received, I'd have to go back to. It would be I wouldn't say it's advice, but it woke me up to a bigger picture.
Okay.
So we used to have what's called tropical days.
Okay.
In Yuma, Arizona. It'd get to be like, 100.
Super hot. I've been there a few times.
We're on these heavy equipment, radars. I was a air defense guy. So we had this big lot. It's just out in the middle of the desert.
Yeah.
Stuff just screaming hot. You touch it and you burn, get a blister. So we'd go tropical hours. And I think I was the 3, which is the operations officer in the battalion. And we had a new colonel come in. And, I came in with the memo and said, hey, tropical hour, sir, you need to sign this. We work from 6 to 1. And then we're off for the rest of the day. So we, 6 to 1 straight through. And that was it. And it was in the summertime. And, all the batteries are calling, hey, when's drop hours? When's drop hours? I'm like, hey, I got to get the colonel to sign this thing, So I sent it in there and he just looked at it. And a little while later, he called me in there and said, hey, what's with these drop hours? I'm like, well, hey, sir, the equipment's hot. You can't really get on it. To the touch, it's on fire. And he goes, well, you're my OPSO, right? I'm like, yes, sir. And he's like, what O plans or operation plans are we tied to? I said, well, we're tied to the Middle East, and we're tied, the Iran, Iraq, he had all these O plans.
Places.
He goes, you think that's hot there? I'm like, yeah, it's pretty hot there, sir. He said, you think we ought to learn how to operate in those conditions? I'm like, yes, sir. You just hand me that thing. It's like, shh, shh, shh. I'm just like, the lesson was, hey, if you're going to war, you're going to have to operate in this stuff. Now, it wasn't advice, but I mean, it was like eye-opening to me. Like, don't bring me this junk. Like, you should have thought of that, right? What plans do we have? I mean, that was a good lesson for me. And he actually called the whole battalion in line and explained why we're working through this stuff.
Fight the way you train.
It was good, So I thought that was a good lesson for me. Anyway, it's a life lesson that I've taken,
Last question.
Yeah.
Why should voters choose Tony McNeill?
Well, I think personally, I'm a honest guy. I have integrity. I'm transparent. I don't really hide things from people. I try to communicate. Most of my leadership and leadership traits come from the Marine Corps. As a Marine Corps officer, big on integrity. You have an integrity violation, you're no longer a Marine Corps officer. They will get rid of you in a heartbeat. Learn that over time. I think one of the most important traits is know your men and know your Marines and look out for their welfare. It's the same way. So know your citizens, right? Listen to them and look out for their welfare. I mean, I think that's kind of applicable either in the military or in the civilian sector, in a community. I always try to listen to input and make sound decisions. I got a lot of planning experience, strategic vision and experience. And I think I could do that for the county. And I think it needs a longer vision than what we're facing this year. I mean, you have to look further than that, I mean, a lot of times it seems like you have to make a decision on something tomorrow. But you got to look deeper and countywide. I mean, for the county, that's important. I mean, I know they're working on, they have a comprehensive plan. They're updating that plan. But you have to get a lot of input from the cities, from the rural residents. And I think once you do that, you can guide the county in the right direction. It's when you don't do that that you have a lot of issues, And I say that to people in Lansing. I'm like, look, you had input into this comprehensive plan. We envisioned this here. We're going to put something there, I mean, and that's why we made that decision. It was part of your input. And I think that's important. I think citizens appreciate that. I mean, I don't really pull any punches. I tell it like it is.
Are you ready to lead on day one?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Tony, thanks for coming. It's been a great conversation. I always enjoy talking with you. Yeah. I've really got an opportunity to get to know you through this campaign, and I wish you the best of luck, my friend.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate the time.
Appreciate you.
Yeah.